to be talking about Shabbat candles. And I know you can only see like this part, but everything around me, I'm surrounded by loads of different props, which I'm very excited to share with you soon. We thought that I have to say a very big thank you to Alison, who shared this great idea with me. And we were saying, why is it that we don't talk about this more? Because Shabbat candles are something that's so central to what we do as women. Why don't we stop and think about it, and think about how it works, and think about what it represents, and think about the messages of our Shabbat candles, and kind of try to connect to it. So what I'm going to say is that the structure of the evening is quite fluid. I'm going to be sharing some ideas with you, some songs with you as well that are meaningful to me, and some of the stories surrounding my own Shabbat candles. But what I'd also invite you to do is anyone who'd like to share a story about either their Shabbat candles, or a specific moving time when they lit Shabbat candles, or a challenging time when they did or didn't light Shabbat candles. That's what this evening's really going to be about us sharing together. And I thought that the only way to start something like this is actually by sharing a song. And I think that when you see the song that I want to share with you, you'll have to agree with me that that's the only way to begin an evening about candle lighting, has to be to share this song together. And I just need to find the screen, so just give me a second. This is just to get everyone into the mood. And also, while it's playing, you can feel free to either think about a story to do with your candles that you might want to share, or bring your candles for us to be able to share with you. But meanwhile, to enjoy this song together. So when we're talking about our Shabbat candles, how else can we begin than with this beautiful
Henry,
song?
Could you bring my brass candlesticks in for me?
From Fiddler on the Roof. So we're going to listen to that together.
Music. Music.
May the Lord protect and defend you. May He always shield you from shame. May you come to be in Israel a shining name. May you be like Ruth and like Esther. May you be deserving of praise. Strengthen them, O Lord, and keep them from the strangers' ways. May God bless you and grant you long life. May the Lord fulfill our Sabbath prayer for you. May God make you good mothers and wives. May He send you husbands who will care for you. May the Lord protect and defend.
Okay, so I hope that set the the right tone to have all our nostalgic thoughts about when we first saw Fiddler on the Roof. And I think for a lot of non-Jewish people, that's their reference to Shabbat, and their understanding of the Shabbat candles will often be through Fiddler on the Roof. But I think for many of us, our memories will be of our mothers lighting Shabbat candles and of us ourselves lighting Shabbat candles. Shabbat, the reason we light 2 candles is because when we're told about celebrating Shabbat, there's 2 different phrases that are used. One is Zachor et Yom HaShabbat, to remember the day of Shabbat, and one is Shamar et Yom HaShabbat, to keep the day of Shabbat. Shamar is more to do with all the things that we mustn't do on that day, and Zachor is all the positive things we do, like making Kiddush, blessing on the challah, the candles, etc. But those 2 candles are really there to represent that idea, these 2 ideas of remembering and keeping Shabbat. And so much of our lives are about that, keeping those 2 precious parts of Shabbat special and holy for us. So I'm going to begin by sharing some of my candlesticks with you. Now, you do have to forgive me, I'm homeschooling at the moment, so they haven't been polished for a very long time. But these are the candles that I got the candlesticks I got when I got married. They're very beautiful. They're just they're very tarnished at the moment, but they will be polished one day. And this was a separate gift from someone else, was that these gorgeous candle holders that have the picture of Jerusalem, which are really very beautiful. And I actually light oil candles. I have done since I got married. I light oil candles. Oil is like the highest level of what you can light for Shabbat. Most people do light wax. I know it's kind of like an additional thing that I do, but that's just something special for me. So those were the candlesticks that I got when I got married. I also light not just the 2 candles for Shamar and Zachor. I also light a candle for each of our children. And we have a very eclectic mix. One day I feel like maybe we'll get a nice uniform set, but not at the moment. So at the moment, what I have is these were, my mother had lit candles for all of us, and I liked from her. So she had, I'm one of 6 children, so she had 8 candlesticks, and there were some extras as well. So we each got a pair of candlesticks from her. These candlesticks, I told you it's really eclectic. They don't match, but I love that about them. These candlesticks we chose when Reuven was born. We chose a pair of candlesticks. So I lit one when he was born, and then when Malka was born, we lit the next one. Then I have, so far we've got the 2 that I got when I got married, the 2 from my mum, the 2 when Reuven was born, and finally, this isn't silver, it's the candlestick that Tribe gave us when Yaakov was born, because Tribe give out lovely candlesticks, and it's not silver and it's a bit wonky, but you know what, it's still special. So that's the story behind my candlesticks. And really the reason that I don't have a lovely set or candelabra is, first of all, because they are all meaningful to me for different reasons. I have a dream. I had a dream. One day, this is what I would like to have hanging in my house. And if you know anybody who's very good at hanging very complicated things, I don't know if anyone's seen something like this. This is from my grandmother. Her grandmother lit this with her Shabbat candles. And so it's got like a dish underneath. Must have been oil, I think, or wax inside of it, probably oil. My grandmother turned it into a lamp fitting, so it's got wires in it now. But I would like to turn it back into something that I can light, that has all the candles going around, hanging from my ceiling. I'm not sure what the United Synagogue will think about me drilling into our ceiling, but that's another question for another time. But that's something I'd really like to go back to, that custom. I think it was quite common in Germany. I've seen it in some Jewish museums, which is really interesting. These kind of candelabras that hang from the ceiling and that they would light the candles in. What's really interesting as well, if you look at the laws of candle lighting, there's lots of different interesting laws, but one of the laws that's really interesting is if a family doesn't have enough money to buy Hanukkah candles and Shabbat candles always takes precedence. And if they don't have enough money to buy wine for Kiddush or challahs or Shabbat candles takes precedence. So lighting Shabbat candles is so important. And the reason given for this is that bringing light into the home home is a way of bringing shalom bayit, bringing peace and light into the home, is so central and so important that takes precedent even over other mitzvot that we need to do, like lighting the Hanukkah candles, like making kiddush over wine or challahs. That's so important, this idea of bringing light and peace into our homes. It's actually really fitting that we're learning about Shabbat candles in the weekend that's been designated a mental health awareness weekend, because actually one of the things that can really help with mental health is lighting candles, you know, bringing or having light. I know someone who I'm very close with who struggled a lot with depression, and one of the things that was really helpful to them was one of these lights that mimics daylight, and it extends daylight, especially now in the winter when it's so dark, to bring more light into our homes and to bring more light into our lives. And it's interesting that the halacha reflects that, this idea of candle lighting takes precedence, because nowadays obviously we have electric lights, but in the times when they didn't have that, this important idea of being able to bring the light of Shabbat and physical light as well into our home was something that was so important. So I'm going to ask if we can turn over to any of you, if you'd like to share with us anything special about your Shabbat candles, particularly. That Marion, I heard you going to get your candles.
Yes.
Please let us know.
I've got very special ones here. My grandmother came to England from Poland with a 3-month-old baby on a cattle boat. She brought her duvet and her candlesticks. I'm the oldest granddaughter and I have them now. And they will go to my children.
That's very special.
Yes.
Wow. And it's interesting that
I wish they could talk and tell us the story.
I know. I wish we knew what was that. But it's also interesting how passing on candlesticks or saving candlesticks was something that was so central to the Jews when they were fleeing from persecution or moving for whatever reason. Trying to find a way to keep those candlesticks was something that was so precious and something
they're so heavy. And they're so heavy. They're brass.
Yeah.
And
Are they easier to polish then if they're brass?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, at least that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Anyone else would like to share? Stella.
Okay, I've got 2 sets of candles as well. One set was from our wedding, but this was actually given to us when Lawrence's mother passed away, but it was actually her parents, so it's Lawrence's grandparents, and it's quite an ornate candlestick. Beautiful. Rather beautiful.
That is beautiful. Do you like both, Stella, then?
Yes, I like both sets, yes. Beautiful. I tend to think of the grandparents when I light each set, yeah, because our wedding present was from my parents, so it's a memory of both parents as well, which is nice. Really
special. And a way to keep their lights burning and continuing. That's really very, very lovely.
Yes, and if you want your candlesticks polished, I'm happy to do them for you. If you want to drop them outside in a carrier bag.
Bless you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Does anyone else want to share with us what candlesticks that they light, or a time they've lit their candles that was very meaningful to them? Alison.
So unlike the stories so far, we actually, please God, 4th of Feb, will have been married 33 years. And when we got married, we didn't inherit anything. I definitely lit candles. There were no candlesticks around. I don't know what I lit, but obviously they weren't important enough candlesticks to feature. And then on our first wedding anniversary, we went to what was a Hilton, then a Ladbroke hotel in the New Forest. And we had a thing about going around antique fairs, and there was one in the hotel. So we thought, you know what, we'll wander around. You might know the New Forest isn't renowned for being particularly a frum part of this country. But lo and behold, on one of the tables were not one, but 2 quite lovely looking candlesticks. So I asked how much they were, and he said £35. And even though it was 32 years ago, I mean, that wasn't bad. And I thought, well, obviously not really made of anything, but how nice, we'll have them. And then I got them valued. I found out they were not silver, solid silver, but silver plate, and they're very nice. And of course, we now light them every week. And it's actually, in the end, it was quite special to find them like that on our first wedding anniversary, which was lovely. And I don't know their story. Like, how on earth did a pair like this end up in the New Forest at an antique fair? I don't know. So then fast forward, and some of you may know, last year I was very blessed to have my first 2 grandsons. And Yehuda was born in Israel in August. And Louis, his dad, went and bought a candlestick. I didn't really know why. Jody's in hospital, like, why is he going to go and buy a candlestick now? And it's what you were saying, Jacqueline, about the tradition of lighting for your child. So Jody could light for him. And I'd never lit for my children because I didn't know it was a thing. But as I was in Israel, I thought, I'm going to go buy 2 more candlesticks, and I'm going to start lighting one for each of my daughters. So that's what I've been doing since August. So that's my second pair.
That's really special. I love the way that you're making your own traditions now, even if it wasn't something that was passed down to you. But I am curious, do we assume that if you buy a pair of candlesticks, it must have come from a Jewish family? Like, I'm assuming it's a very Jewish thing to like, you know, when you find these candlesticks in the New Forest, I'm assuming it must have come from a Jewish family, but maybe, I mean, I don't know. Like you say, and Marion, you said as well, if only the candlesticks could talk, what story would they tell us?
The New Forest is not far from Bournemouth.
Yes, I was thinking that. I was thinking that. But do we agree, if like a pair of those kind of candlesticks are probably from a Jewish family, aren't they?
I saw some sort of antiques program where they showed some candlesticks, and there were like these 3 different sets of pairs of candlesticks, and they were sort of talking about how much like they were worth because of the design and things like that. So I think it's not so unusual to come in a pair. I think sort of like that is quite normal. Sort of maybe you'd have them at either end of the mantelpiece or either end of your very long, you know, dining table or something like that if you were quite push. So maybe, but we just get our own cultural assumptions on them, don't we?
Yeah. Well, I know we went on holiday. I think we were in maybe Cornwall. I can't remember. Also, a place where not teeming with Jewish people, and we saw a menorah in the window, which we were so excited about. But I think that that's also not unique to the Jewish culture. There's a Christian idea of lighting some sort of candelabra as well. So that was kind of like, just because they have a menorah in the window doesn't mean that they're Jewish. But it is interesting, just we don't know the story behind some of these things. You know, if they could talk, what would my great grandmother's hanging light, what would it tell me? The stories it would tell me. Anyone else want to share with us? Leslie.
My mother had a very, very beautiful set of candlesticks, which actually have jumped a generation, and they've gone to my daughter, because I also have lovely sticks, which my parents bought me. But my mother used to tell us that when she first met my father in 1938, I think, a long time ago, they had no money, either of them. But my father saw this very beautiful set of candlesticks in I think an antique shop, or I don't know, they weren't new. And he wanted to buy them, and they cost far more than he had. So he used to go every week and pay a couple of shillings, whatever he could afford, until he paid for the candlesticks. And he paid for them just before they got married, I think. So my mother lit them all her life. And my mother lived to be 99 and a very long life, but she still lit the same candlesticks. And she was very insistent that they should go to my daughter. That was, you know, really important to her. And now my daughter lights them, and I light my own. But when I see them in my daughter's flat, I always, you know, think how lovely that my mother wanted them to go down another generation, and hopefully they'll go further.
really so special to have that meaning and that tradition and continuing the chain. Thank you, Leslie. Is there someone, Amanda?
I like candlesticks that were my grandmother's. And actually, I didn't inherit them straight after. My grandfather actually left them in his will for me, because after my grandmother passed away, he carried on lighting them. And he sort of specified that he wanted them to go to me, and that he wanted money left from his estate to go to buy my cousins a set of candlesticks each, so that they could all have candlesticks that had come from them, even if they weren't the ones that I got. So just because my mother is their only daughter, so they went sort of jumped over her and came to me as their oldest, the eldest granddaughter, and maybe because it's their daughter's daughter. So and my parents bought my Yona, my daughter, candlesticks that are small set of candlesticks for her bat mitzvah. So she lights those generally when she's at home. It's unusual. Normally people only light one when they're married, but because my mum bought two, she lights two.
Well, that's a really interesting thought, Amanda, because some people have it's all just about custom. Some people don't light candles at all before they're married or before they have their own home. Some people will light one, some people will light two. Everyone has different customs about it. It's very interesting. And I liked what you said also about your grandfather continuing to light them, because actually when there's not a woman of the house, a man still has a beautiful mitzvah of bringing Shabbat into the home. What's really interesting, though, is the idea that even when the way that we know when it's Shabbat is after L'Chadodi, there's a paragraph that we say Mizmar Shir Liyom HaShabbat, and when they say that, that means that it's Shabbat. Now, I'm laughing because Amanda knows that sometimes I forget that I shouldn't say that bit, and I need to, and Wendy, you know this as well, and I need to run home and light my candles in the summer because I've forgotten, and I mustn't say that bit, because once you say that, you've accepted Shabbat on yourself. And when it's too early to light the candles, but they've already started davening, it's quite difficult to juggle that time. Those of you who know what I'm talking about, right? To get it right, if you are going to shul and you're still lighting your candles. But what's fascinating is, in our home, if I haven't gone to shul, and Elchanan has said this prayer of Mizmar Shel Yom HaShabbat, Shabbos is not in our home until I've lit the candles. So even though that's the prayer that they say in shul, and I think sometimes people think that it's what goes on in shul that makes our Judaism, but actually it's only by me lighting my Shabbat candles that I bring Shabbos into our home, which is really like an interesting thing, that it's actually reliant on, in most cases, the woman of the home, right? Like I said, unless, like the example Amanda said, if there's not a woman there, or if the woman's not able to light the candles. But as women, this is one of our 3 beautiful mitzvot, is lighting the Shabbat candles. And we bring that atmosphere into our home in a very powerful way. Did someone else want to share with us the story of their candlestick? You have to let me know. I'm trying to see if there's anyone else who's got something they want to share. Anyone else? No? Okay. So this idea of bringing the atmosphere of Shabbat into our home, and it being one of the women's central mitzvah, is something that's very special. I often reflect on the idea that I genuinely believe that the reason that we are all Jewish today, and I include myself very much in this, even though there's been generations of persecution and illness and poverty and migration and struggles, is because we all have a bubba or a great bubba or a great bubba somewhere going back in our generations, who used to light the Shabbat candles and cry. And when they cried, they would pray and they would say the words that I hope that my children and my grandchildren will stay connected to the Torah. And I think that we all know people who have left our faith, whether it's through intermarriage, whether it's through finding Judaism irrelevant, whether it's through life circumstances, lots of different reasons. But I do really believe that every one of us who is here today, who's on this Zoom call today, and who's in our community today, there must be a bubba or a great bubba somewhere who, while she was lighting her candles and crying and praying to Hashem, that's why they're still connected today. And one of my favorite prayers, I've shared this with some of you when we do things like candle lighting together, but one of probably my favorite prayer is the prayer that we say when we light the candles. So those of you who've been in our home, those of you who haven't, please God, you should be able to come very soon. We miss you all. But this is a wedding gift that we received. Now, as you can see, it's written actually like in very similar to the way that the Torah is written. It's in Safras. It's in the same script. It's got the crowns on it. It doesn't have vowels, so it's not the easiest thing to read. But friends of my parents-in-law, people that Elchana knew from America, made this for us for our wedding present. Now, I believe that the family doesn't have very much to be able to buy us a big gift, but this is one of the most precious things they could have bought us, because I pray from this every single week. Now, the blessing at the top is what we're familiar with, the idea of saying, like we say every bracha, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, so who commanded us and sanctifies us through lahadlik ner shel Shabbat, lighting the candles of Shabbos. And we know if it's Yom Tov, then we say Yom Tov or Yom HaKippurim or Shabbos v'Yom Tov. That's the standard part of the blessing, this bit over here. The reason this is so special to me is because of a paragraph underneath. Now, I know it's here in Hebrew. I'm going to attempt to translate it. If you have a siddur or a bencher that has it in at home, I would really recommend that you open it and that you pray from it, because like I said, it's my favorite prayer, this part. So we say,
Jacqueline, we can't hear you.
Okay, sorry, Kathy. So, Yehirat Son Milfanecha, is that better?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so may it be your will, Hashem, our God, and the God of Israel, Shetachonin Osi, that you have mercy on me. The S, and then when it's relevant, it's the et is she, if it's relevant, my husband or my children or my parents, the et kol karovai, and all who are close to me. And I have to tell you, whenever there's somebody that I feel particularly connected with, and whether it's my sibling, whether it's a member of our family, whether it's a cousin, whether it's a close friend, whether it's a community member, and I'm particularly worried about them, or there's something I particularly want to pray for them that week, when I say the words, the et kol karovai, which means everyone who's close to me, then I'll have in mind that particular person. So whoever it is that I really want to pray for, that's when I'll say them. And that's when I'll say what it is that I'm asking Hashem particularly to bear in mind. And then it continues with Sitei lanu l'chol Yisrael, that you should give to us and to all of Israel, Chaim Tovim, a good life. It's fascinating, that expression. We say it so often, Chaim Tovim, the idea of a good life. Life on its own needs to be a good life, right? So a person can be alive and be suffering. So we're asking Hashem for a good life, whether they're suffering physically or mentally. We know how difficult it is. So we're saying a Chaim Tovim, we want a good life, va'arukim, and a long life. V'siskarenu b'zikaron tova, that you should remember us with a good memory of racha and blessing. V'tifkadenu b'fkudas Yeshua v'rachamim, that you should remember us in a different way, to have salvation and mercy. V'sashkein shchinas beinenu, and that your presence, your shekhinah, the divine presence of God, should dwell amongst us. We want to feel God's presence in our life. And when we don't feel it, when we're having a hard time, again, that would be where I would focus on that idea that I really want to feel God close to me. I'm having a really tough time. I'm really struggling. So I'm going to ask God to really try to make his presence, I should feel his presence in my life. I shouldn't feel so alone. V'zakenu legadel banim uvnei banim, chachamim unevonim, ahavei Hashem yirei Elokim. We should merit to raise children and grandchildren who are wise and understanding, who love God, who fear God, anshe emet, upstanding men or upstanding people, zera kodesh b'Hashem dveikim, holy seeds who are clinging to God, u'meirim et ha'olam b'Torah. They illuminate the world with Torah of amasim tovim, and with good deeds of echol melechet avodat habara, and all sorts of work to serve God. Ana shema. So 1 second, just before I continue. So the idea over here is we're praying, like I said, our mothers and our grandmothers were praying for us. When they said these words, they were talking about us, that we should still be okay nowadays. And children doesn't necessarily just mean physical children. It can mean students and those we come into contact as well, that we want to pray that they should give a positive contribution into society. Whatever it is that we're doing in the world, those that we come into contact, we should pray that they have a positive effect on the world around us. And you know, there's so much goodness that we can see in what's going on at the moment, people helping each other, and unfortunately there's also so much negativity. So we're praying that humanity should be going in the right direction. And then this is one of the reasons, this is one of my favorite prayers as well at the end here. Every bit is, as you can see, I'm saying, but okay. Please listen to my prayer or my beseeching, in the merit of Sarah, Verifka, Rachel, Leah, Imotenu. Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah are our mothers. V'ha'er nerenu, and illuminate our light. Shelo yichber le'olam va'ed, that it shouldn't go out forever. V'ha'er panecha v'nivashea, and let us see the light of your face, and we should be saved. Amen. Now, this phrase of praying for that we're talking about Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. I always talk about this never-ending chain. We are so blessed to be part of a chain that goes back all the way to Sarah. And then she passed on lighting the candles to Rebecca, and Rebecca passed it on to Rachel, and Rachel to Leah. And it goes on and on and on till my grandmother, who passed it on to my mother, who passes it on to me. And please God, I'm going to pass that on as well. This is an amazing, long, unbroken line of tradition. There's not the same equivalent in the male way of doing Judaism. In the feminine aspect of Judaism, there's something very special about the fact that we're continuing on this chain that's never been broken. And we know that in Judaism as well, we know that the fact that we're Jewish comes from our mothers. So this is very much that strength and that line, that never-ending line that comes through there. While I was looking into different songs for this evening, I came across a song called My Mother's Shabbos Candles, and I wonder if it's familiar to you, because it wasn't something that I knew, but I think it was quite a famous song in Yiddish as well. Does anyone know that song?
I think I've heard of it before, but until I hear the tune, I won't remember it at all.
Yeah.
But that prayer that you just said, it's in the Art Scroll Siddur.
Yeah.
And you translated it very well.
Oh yeah, did I get it right? I'm never sure if how my Hebrew.
I was following it. You translated it very well.
Okay. So I can't remember. There is a famous singer who sings this song. The version that I got, the one that she was singing, it was a bit crackly. So I've got a newer version sang by Avram Fried. But while it's playing, I'll just look up who it was that sang it. But it's a really beautiful song. I knew obviously My Yiddish Mama, right? We all know that song. But this, I think it's a similar kind of song, but I hadn't heard of it actually myself. So let me just find, you know, actually, I'm going to do this differently. Okay. I found a better way of being able to share that. I don't need to share the screen every time. You can just listen. So this is what I wanted to share with you. So this is originally, I think, a Yiddish song, but they've translated it into English, and it's just very moving.
Honoring the Jewish mothers, the brave heroines who kept the light and the flame of Yiddishkeit alive, even in the most darkest times. Among the smiles, among the tears of my childhood sweet and bitter years, there's a picture that my memory fondly frames, and in it burn 2 times My mother's Shabbos candles, which made our home so bright, which faithfully she lighted with a prayer on Friday night. And then around the table we gathered and we heard my father chant the Kiddush, his heart in every word. Our humble home became a mansion in that mystic glow. Our hearts were filled with hopes and dreams and thoughts of long ago. And yet the tragic stories of Israel's darkest nights will never dim the glory of my mother's Shabbos lights. My mother's Shabbos candles, which made our home so bright, which faithfully she lighted with a prayer on Friday night. And then around the table we gathered and we heard my father chant the Kiddush, his heart in every word. Our humble home became a mansion in that mystic glow. Our hearts were filled with hopes and dreams and thoughts of long ago. And yet the tragic stories of Israel's darkest nights will never dim, oh, the glory of my mother's Shabbos light.
So the name of the singer, if any of you have heard of her, is Sophie Tucker. I don't know if it was her. Yeah, you've heard of her. Okay. So sorry, it's what do you say?
She did My Yiddish Mama as well.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's that sort of style, but I hadn't heard of that song before actually. And it's obviously originally a Yiddish song that she's translated into English, but it's a very, very moving song. Like I said, I would have played her version, but it was quite old and crackly. So I chose a more modern version of the same song to share with you. So there's a story around the year of the millennium, which I wasn't sure if this was true, and I've been trying to search. I know I'd heard of it, and it could be you've heard of the story as well, but I was Googling, as one does, and it seems that it is authentic, but either way, I think the message of the story is very authentic. That in the millennium, the New York Times wanted to produce, I guess they had like a special pullout of their newspaper, and they printed the front page of the year 1900, the year 2000, and the year 2100. So it's looking at 300 years, or yeah, 200 years, but 100 years apart, that you can see what would be going on in the world. And they came up with all these exciting things that in 100 years time, you know, robots are obviously going to be part of everyday life and all the rest of it. I can't wait for the robot that's going to do all my washing for me, right? We're all waiting for that one, aren't we? But what was very interesting was on the front page of the New York Times for 2100, it said, it had a box at the front that said something along the lines of Jewish women and girls will light candles at this and this time on Friday night. And someone was doing some research into why that was included in the New York Times in 100 years time. Why, like, who put that in there? Had someone paid for that as an advert? And no one had paid for it. The editor or whoever had put it together was actually Irish Catholic, so it wasn't a Jewish person who'd put that in, but he had said one thing: none of us know what's going to be in 100 years time, right? We don't. Like, even we all keep saying this time last year in the end of January, none of us had any idea what we would be dealing with over this year, right? So in 100 years time, there's no way we could predict what's going to be. But there is one thing that we all know for sure. This Irish Catholic man said that in 100 years time, Jewish women and girls will still be lighting their candles for Shabbat, and this will be the time of Shabbat. And I hope it's a true story, because I think it's just so wonderful. The idea that, yeah, you know what, we've been doing this through, you know, when we started with Fiddler on the Roof, and when you look at the persecution and the challenge, and we are so blessed nowadays, right? We are so blessed, the community we live in. And I'm thinking, even in terms of the COVID guidelines, how the government has really tried to accommodate our religion, and there's no persecution, and we're allowed to be free to be Jewish. And, you know, again, thinking back a year ago when some of us were saying, are we going to be able to stay in this country or not, depending what happens with the elections? And we're just so many brachas. There's so much wonderful things that in terms of us being Jewish, and life was so hard in terms of that for so many. The place where our candlesticks came from, right? So marrying your grandparents or my great grandmother, who knows how hard life was. All I know is it probably wasn't as easy as our life is to be Jewish, right? You just walk up to the high street and you've got everything you want. Even more than that, they'll deliver everything you want to your door now, right? We are so blessed. In some ways, it's so easy to be Jewish. And the challenge for us as Jewish women is to keep that fire burning, to keep that flame alive. So this is actually a Hanukkah one, but this is one of the lovely gifts that we got. Do you remember the days when people used to come and visit your houses? So this was one of those lovely gifts we got from some of our Shabbos guests. And the amazing thing about a candle, which is something, again, that I often say when we've got like a candle lighting or something, it doesn't matter what direction I hold the flame in, the flame always goes upwards. And we say that our soul, there's a verse that says that ki ner Hashem nishmas adam, that the soul of a person is like a flame. That's why actually I have a custom. I don't blow out a candle because it's like a flame of a person. I don't know if people have come across that idea before. I won't blow out candles. So birthday candles on cakes are very complicated because there's a limit of how much you can do this. So we tend not to have birthday candles on cake. We have other lovely things instead. But the idea of not extinguishing a soul, or we know the idea of a soul being represented by candles, because that's why we like yahrzeit candles. A soul is very connected to the idea of a candle, and a flame, to the flame of the candle. The wax and the wick of the candle are like the physical part of ourselves, as like our body, and the flame is like our soul. And just like a candle, the wax and the physical part of the candle, it's connected to the flame, but it's not the flame. If I show you a candle that's not been lit, that's not a flame. The flame it's attached to the candle when it's alight, but it isn't the candle itself. It's something above it. That's what our soul's like as well. But our soul, just like the flame on a candle, is always aiming to head upwards. You know, sometimes people say to me that our Jewish journeys that we all go on, you know, that's something that people do when they're younger, when their kids are younger, when their careers, you know, when they're young adults, whatever it is, when they're starting off their lives. But I don't think that's true at all. I think that every single one of us, whatever stage we are at life, our soul's always aiming higher. There's always more we can learn. There's always more that we want to understand. There's always more that we want to connect to. I want to share with you one last song. That this was a song that I probably first heard when I was in secondary school, We used to do a lot of sitting around and singing in a girls' secondary school in Hasmonean, as you can imagine. There's a lot of, I've discussed this before when we do the wonderful Hallel that Miriam arranges for us. There's such a wonderful feeling of a group of girls sitting around and singing. Sometimes I don't think it was so wonderful for the teachers when they were trying to get us to do something else. But, you know, this idea of just sitting around in a kumsitz in a circle and just singing to our heart's content. So one of the songs that we used to sing is called My Dear Imma. And I think really if we talk about the idea of our candles being a representation of the chain that we come from, and our babas and our mothers and all the people that came before us, going all the way back to Sarah, this song is called My Dear Imma. I think that most of the words are pretty self-explanatory in terms of understanding them. It's very American, but you're used to that now. You've had an American rabbi for over 4 years, so you get it now, right? You understand that it's just American. There's nothing you can say about it. But I would like to share this with you because this is sung by a young girl, and I just thought it's just so beautifully sung, and the words just represent the hopes and dreams that the mother has for her daughter. So let's see if this works.
I'm sending this letter to say the things I've never said. My impressions as your daughter, these thoughts are going through my head. As far back as I can remember, you said Shema with me at night. Each week I saw you welcome Shabbos. I saw your candles burning bright. You made our home a house of Torah, encouraged Abba to learn each day. You stood beside him during hard times. You gave him strength in your own way. You taught us all about the mitzvot, showed us the right way from the start. We always saw your love for Torah. You instilled it in our hearts. Now your children have grown older. Each one has gone their separate ways. But yeah, we follow in your footsteps. You made us what we are today. Now your daughter is a mother. I do the things you used to do. Not only did you build your own home, but Ima, you built my home too.
Like I said, it's quite American. I hope it was clear enough for you, but we used to sing this song at the top of our lungs, sitting in Hasmonean as young girls. And for me, what's very special actually is next to this beautiful picture that I have a picture of my mother with me as a little girl that I blew up onto like a big piece. And every time I light my candles, you know, that connection that I have is such a strong one, and it's such an emotional time. It really is, lighting candles on Friday night. What's really interesting, just in terms of from a halachic perspective, just one more point. Normally, our customs always go after our father. So if there's particular customs, so a good example is, we all know about the difference between Ashkenazim and Sephardim when it comes to eating rice on Pesach, right? And we joke already about that we should try to find Malka, Sephardi boy, so that she can have sushi on Pesach. But we know that the correct way is, if there's a minhag in the family, it should go after the father. That's the way that minhag is passed down. And there's lots of different, not just Ashkenazim and Sephardim, there's lots of differences in our minhagim in general. But the interesting thing is, when it comes to the women's mitzvah, so when it comes to challah, ner, candle, and mikveh, we actually go according to the mother's minhag. So if there was a particular minhag, so I can tell you an example that I would have. It's quite specific to me because, like I said, I do light all the candles, like I light for all the kids as well. What she used to do was she used to light one of the main candles, then light all the other ones, and then light the second main one. So it's almost like the two that we said, Shamar and Zachar, she'd light one, light all the smaller ones and then light the second one. So I try to do that as well, because it's something small, but it goes according to her minhag, her custom. What's really interesting is in the Gemara, it talks about the idea of so we light the candles, and then we're all familiar with the idea that we cover our eyes like this. And a lot of people will say, where does that come from? The idea is that when you say a blessing, let's say on an apple, you say the blessing and then you eat it. With candle lighting, when you say the blessing, if you then light the candles, so if you do the action after you've said the blessing, you've got a big problem, because you'll be transgressing Shabbat. Once you say the blessing, it's already Shabbos, right? So when you say the blessing over your candles, if you then light the candles, we've got a problem because it's already Shabbos. On Yom Tov, though, when you're allowed to take the flame from another flame, you're allowed to use an existing flame to light your candles. What do you do first? Do you first say the blessing and then light your candles? Or do you first light your candles and then say the blessing? And I'd love for people to unmute themselves and let me know what they do. Stella? Any idea?
Cover your eyes and say the blessing. Yeah.
On Yom Tov?
On Yom Tov, sorry.
Sorry, on Yom Tov, do you do anything? Do you do it in a different order?
I think I do it the same. Thinking of Yom Tov.
Anyone else? It's a really interesting one, because actually both are right. Some people will do the same because that's the way you like. Wendy, did you want to say, what do you do?
I do it the same way. I light the candles first from the existing flame and then say the bracha.
Right. But it is really interesting, because actually on Yom Tov, you don't have the same issue. You could, in theory, say the blessing and then light the candles.
But I think that would feel so weird, because we're
it would, yeah, yeah. So I think I do that as well. I have to remind myself. I think I do the same as what you're saying, because that's what I'm used to. But actually, what's amazing is in the Gemara, when it discusses it, it actually quotes a woman to tell us what the law is. So it doesn't normally in the Talmud. It's very, very, very common. It will say Rabbi so and so says this, that, or the other. But this, I think, is learnt out from I think it's Imashel, like the mother of one of the sages. But because it's a woman's law, we know how to do it. So even to think of the question, what you do first, this is our realm, this is our mitzvah. So it's just been really special to have a chance to connect together and to think together about this very special mitzvah that we get the opportunity to do every week, of lighting our candles. And much more than just literally lighting flames, and much more even than, the idea of bringing physical light into our home. At this time of so much darkness, it's our faith, it's the faith of us women and the light that we can bring into the world that makes so much of a difference. And we I know we're not allowed to talk about the Pesach word, because that's ages away, isn't it? Even though my grandmother always said straight after Rosh Hashanah, it's nearly Pesach, right? But on Pesach, we talk about the idea that it was in the merit of the righteous women in Egypt that we were redeemed. And we say that it's going to be in the merit of the righteous women in our generation that, please God, Mashiach will come as well, which is the ultimate light. So please God, we'll all keep lighting our candles till the year 2100 and on, right? We're going to keep that flame going and realize that the flame that we're bringing into this world, the light we're bringing into this world, is making so much of a difference to keep Judaism's flame burning, just like our mothers, grandmothers, great-great-great-grandmothers, all the way back to Sarah did. So thank you, ladies, for joining us this evening. A big thank you to Alison for a lovely idea of being able to share each other's stories about our candles. And please God, we should just keep giving light. Wishing you all a Shavua Tov, a good week.
Shavua Tov, have a good week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely
Bye,
to
everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Mm.